Good morning, everyone. I'm Virginia Puzzolo. I'm the head of program in the Circular Biobase Europe joint undertaking. You have heard about this special instrument also yesterday. And I'm very pleased to be with you today in this specific session on biotechnology and biomanufacturing. Why this is so important? I will tell you more. First of all, we are not alone. Thanks for being here today with us physically, but we have also many people connected, and I will come back to them with the possibility later on to pose questions via Slido. So after the presentation, we will have the possibility also for those that are not with us to contribute to the discussion. I really encourage all of you to have a debate and a discussion today, because what we want is to harvest idea and understand what are the challenges on which we have to work in the years to come. So I'm not alone today. Actually, I am with three distinguished guests. I would like to introduce to you Jérôme. Please come with me here, sit there. Jérôme Van Bieft. Sorry, I told you that my pronunciation will be difficult. He is the managing director at VIB in Belgium, and he will guide us, opening the discussion today, to explain what are the potentiality of biotechnology. So please come, Francisco, come you. Castro Alves, he is the coordinator of the biomanufacturing platform at Europa Bio. And we have Per Giuseppe Morone, is a full professor of economic policy at Unitelma Sapienza University of Rome. And is also the vice chair of our CBE scientific committee. So before we start, I'd like to see what do we want to discuss today. What is the objective of this session? So we have spoke a lot about bioeconomy. Maybe I start saying bioeconomy is not new. We have done bioeconomy for centuries. What is new today is that we have to do bioeconomy in a different way because of our limited resources, the challenges we have in front of us, especially linked to climate changes, but also to growing population. So what do we want to discuss today is how we use new enabling technologies, and in particular biotechnologies, and how we upscale them, so in terms of biomanufacturing, to make bioeconomy sustainable, circular, and viable today and for tomorrow. That's really the discussion we are going to do. So we bridge and try to explain and discuss with you what do we want to achieve with the bioeconomy and how we achieve this with the tools that come from the innovation side, which come from the biotechnology. And we start really with you, Jérôme, with your experience coming from this distinguished institute on what you can bring to this discussion, where we are in biotechnology, what are the potentiality of this. So I pass the floor to you, and I sit close.
Thank you. Maybe I will take this.
Yes.
First of all, thank you very much, and I'm really excited to be able to address this point and pass along some of the enthusiasm. The theme is really about youth and how we can make a difference. I think this theme is very well placed. I want to convince you, in fact, that we are facing a new revolution. We've had the Industrial Revolution, we had the Agricultural Revolution before. Actually, the biotech revolution is really next around the corner. In fact, if I tell you, this was probably the starting point for a revolution which a 0 and a 1 combined with intellectual curiosity and entrepreneurship really led to the digital revolution, which is still very much ongoing. I want to convince you now that, in fact, we ain't seen nothing yet. In fact, biotechnology will really transform the European Union's industrial fabric. Because actually, and just to put everybody on the same page, we don't just have two letters. Actually, we have four that combine into three-letter words, and we have lots of complexity added to that. Life is really structured around multiple layers of going from the DNA all the way to the organism and the ecosystems. And so right now we're in a situation where we have the technology and in fact also the machine learning, the AI, to really grasp the full complexity of it. And so just mining, to give you an idea of the importance of this, just mining the human genome, it's been said many times, actually translated already into a very vibrant economic output. And I think certainly in the US, although just one side message still as well, we still have some catching up to do in terms of Europe, but I would say our science is at least as good. So starting, just imagine what we can achieve if we now can really source anywhere from the soil, from microorganisms, which we use in daily practice, but obviously much broader, all sorts of living organisms in any shape or form around us, going from animals all the way to plants, harness that potential that's there and really start applying it. And indeed, that's what we do. We start mining these organisms for basically at a very high performance and accuracy level, even to the single cell level and at multiple levels of analysis. We apply high performance AI to make sense of all that data, right? And then finally, what I really think is going to change, we can bank on, or we can surf on a generation of molecular biology engineering expertise within our institute, but in many others as well. So we really have a potential here to harness the insights and apply them to real problems in our economy. And so that's where I think that's really the synthetic biology revolution, which is in front of us, where we really want to make a difference in agriculture, in food production, but also in green chemistry. And so the big difference with the digital revolution, where it was all man-made, let's say, here we can take a big lesson out of evolution. Evolution is guiding the script book for us, and we can engineer microbes, we can engineer plants, and transform these waste streams into food, feed, biofuels, etc. Just to make the reference as well, this is an important source of competitiveness and of economic growth. We are still there as well, a way ahead. There's still a lot of growth potential. If you look at the axis on this graph versus the previous one, I think we have a big catching up to do, even though actually the potential is obviously much higher. This is really what we stand for. And what it comes down to and how we take this at VIB is really starting with curiosity-driven basic research. And we are very lucky all across Europe. There is really great research going on. We are leaders in the world around this. What the next step is really what, for example, Louis Pasteur also did, is to ask basic questions, but with a particular problem in mind, and really develop transformational solutions. But then we need to make the step, and that's an important one where we still have some things to learn, to engineer and to transform this into economic activity, into company creation, into, for example, in this case, the founder of some of the biggest biotechs in the US. And so there's basically a graduating, let's say a sliding scale of asking the why question. Why is something the way it is, and what can we do with it? And that's, of course, what at VIB we do. And I want to give you some examples, because it's all theory otherwise, and also enthuse you with some of the ideas that we're pursuing. For example, this is a case where one of our scientists, Sophie Hoormachter, was really studying how microbes interact with plants, and how that could be applied in agriculture. This was the start of one of the very exciting startups at VIB called Afea Bio, who have now become really a core partner. They've been able to raise significant capital rounds, including last year's round of 70 million euros, developing biopesticides, growth stimulants, all based on biologicals in agriculture. So an exciting story to keep in mind. Similar story here. we need to diversify. We need to offer farmers different solutions to rotate crops. Soy is an underdeveloped crop in our region, in our latitudes. So here we combined a breeding program on the one hand, together with, again, this rhizobiome, this soil health expertise, and really started a nice company called Protealis. Again, I invite you to keep an eye on it, because this is, they are already commercial, in fact, with their first products. So again, making a real difference. Another example, creative example, I would say, starting from, and the ones that know VIB know that we are very well known for the llama antibodies, the nanobodies, the VHHs. These are very small peptides that have a unique potency to bind to very specific areas. We can actually apply this in agriculture and develop crop protection agents that are fully biological, that are basically away from the chemical pesticides that routinely used. And they are already publicly listed and are developing their first, launching their first product. So, oops. Maybe just to switch to a few other examples. I think this is the one I wanted. Again, these are projects now that we're still incubating, so we're hoping to bring out. But just to give you the example of how we transition, this is one of our scientists, top scientists, looking at the structure biology of how spori, bacteria form these filaments, which you see on the slide. In fact, some of these harbor very interesting properties, which can be applied in biotextiles, highly functionalized textiles. So imagine what we could do with that technology. Very similarly, Kevin Verstrepen, one of our scientists, very active in synthetic biology, with a high degree of pathway engineering and a very wide collection of yeasts, and actually also the expertise to scale these up to a reasonable production level, has been able to, is working on a number of projects which could make a real economic difference, going from bioplastics to components for industry. And so here really it's about understanding yield. We need to get these technologies to a point where they can be industrially applied and have sufficient competitiveness, cost competitiveness compared to what is there out there already. Another example, again, from the same scientist here, where we start from, again, the yeast collections. We do the pathway engineering to develop fats. Fats are, in fact, a very valuable ingredient for now, mostly coming from animal fat. For example, if you think about foodstuffs, easily replaceable with alternative technologies. So things like this is where we can really make a difference. And now I want to come back very quickly, if I still have some.
1 minute.
1 minute is entrepreneurship. We actually have an entrepreneurial incubator as well, where we try to stimulate stories that come from external entrepreneurs in the ag-food space to really make some of these stories a reality. And so just going to flip through, there's quite a number of stories there. I invite you all to follow them on LinkedIn. But we see a very big surge in interest from very young entrepreneurs, a high degree of female entrepreneurs also, by the way, to apply and to go for it and make their story a reality. So with that, I thank you very much. Just wanted to leave you with perhaps some of the discussion topics we can and some priorities. It's really about making life simple for entrepreneurs, and this innovation is about ensuring the money is there, right? This is still an important factor in Europe, and about boosting innovation. I think that's where I would like to end. And
thanks a lot, Jerome. Really enlightening. In a short presentation, he touched upon how we move from science to technology, and we address the next step, which is in fact create entrepreneurship. And now I move to Francisco, because indeed, what do we need to go to the next level? How do we scale up, and what are the difficulties that our company are having in Europe specifically? If you can give us some example based on your experience, please.
Of course. First, thank you for the question, Virginia, and also thank you for the invitation for Europa Bio to be here today to representing the voice of biotech industry. I will not have slides because I will mainly report on the Biomanufacturing Policy Summit that happened yesterday here in Brussels, in which we brought together biotech industry across sectors and policymakers, and we discussed the challenges and opportunities for biomanufacturing in Europe. But to answer your question, Virginia, I think we are doing it in Europe, but we are doing it too slow and without having a clear plan, a clear strategy of action. But before going to Europe and exploring this point, I don't think it makes sense to talk about Europe without setting the global scene, because Europe is not alone, and there are a lot of things that we need to be aware of. First of all, we have the USA, of course, that is usually the benchmark. In the end of 2022, they launched the executive order in biotech and biomanufacturing. As you all know, more than $2 billion to invest in biotech and biomanufacturing. I would like to highlight two other things. These 2 billion, they had specific financial allocations to specific technologies and sectors, and connected with them specific targets and objectives that need to be achieved in a time frame. So it's not only about the money, it's about targets and putting figures on it. And second of all, connected to this executive order, they also launched a set of skills that they are looking for and that they will promote in the future, that they call the bio workforce of the future. But it's not only about the US again. We have other global players that we need to be aware of. We have India, that in their latest national biotechnology strategy, they set a clear goal of becoming a $100 billion biomanufacturing global hub by investing specifically in affordable and accessible products. They did it in other industries. They are doing it now in biomanufacturing. We can talk about Japan. Japan, in their latest also bioeconomy strategy in 2019, they connected biotech and biomanufacturing with a solution for problems such as global warming, food supply, and food sovereignty. And more recently, they also shared the plan of an $8 billion fund to increase their biomanufacturing capacity. And last but not least, China, of course. It's difficult to get figures and numbers from China, but we know that in their latest 5-year plan, from 2021 and 2025, they identified for the first time biotech and biological solutions as major themes. So I think this sets a clear trend globally. Biotech, biomanufacturing, and bioeconomy are the way to go, and the main objective globally is to scaling up these solutions. So if we talk now about Europe and about what we heard yesterday from the industry, first of all, if you want to scale up a biotech innovation, you need feedstock. And here is the first problem of Europe. We have a lack of availability of feedstock, and the feedstock that exists has very high costs. Of course, these 2 points are connected, but it's an handicap of Europe compared to other markets. I know that CBJU is putting efforts on that, on engaging with the primary sector, because there is an untapped potential there, and we need to work on that. Second of all, also to scale any innovation, you need capital, you need funding. It was mentioned in the session before, and here I don't want to talk only about public funding. I also want to talk about private funding. So we need to join efforts. We need to have a clear financial frameworks to build confidence for the investors. We need to bring in venture capitals, private equity funds, banks, and it really needs to be a joint effort because we need a lot of investment for a long period of time to scale up our capacity. Third, we have problems with regulations on access to market. So every new product, biotech innovation that comes out, usually they face one of 2 challenges. Either they are over-regulated, there are overlapping regulations, contradictory regulations at the EU national level, and you can imagine for an SME or a startup, it's very difficult to navigate this kind of landscape. And second of all, what is also that happens, it's that there is a lack of regulation. So technology evolves so fast that the policymakers either were not able to create regulations or to update the existing ones, and here we need smarter regulation. A last point, we need to address the single market and to leverage the single market. Single market cannot be optional. We have to leverage the 438 million people that we have to be a real global player in biotech and biomanufacturing. I want now to shift to a positive note because Europe has a lot of strengths and opportunities. Europe ranks higher than China and US in high quality publications in biotech across every sector. So we have the best universities, we have the best scientists, we have the best engineers. So we have all it takes to scale up and to find the solutions. And we have in front of us also a unique opportunity. So 2 weeks ago, there was a report that came out that for the first time, they put some numbers and figures in the global biomanufacturing capacity. So at the moment, this report it was from BCG and Synonym, and they calculate that from the entire global biomanufacturing capacity, 84% is at lab scale, 8% at pilot scale, and 8% at industrial scale. They also anticipate that by 2040, this current capacity needs to grow by 20-fold. And Europe here has an opportunity because we can lead this growth, we can champion the biotech and biomanufacturing and choose the technologies to scale up. And I would like to end up with a quote that I heard in another event. It's not mine, so if it's someone from the audience, please take the credit. I don't remember who said this. And the quote is the following: "The microorganisms are the microchips of the bioeconomy." So Europe needs to realize this, needs to invest in microorganisms to scale up at an industrial level. And when we have industrial solutions, we'll be able to create positive impact, not only for the economy, but for society and for environment, and have a clear shift towards the bioeconomy. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Francesco. Couple of important words that he mentioned is that we are in the lead, so we have the capacity and the skills, but we need to be fast. We have to be faster in ensuring that we can scale up, and we have to be together because we need to mobilize so much fundings that we cannot do it alone. So the joint needs of mobilizing public but also private funding. Thanks a lot, but let's go to another prospect with Pier Giuseppe. So we have the skills, we want to go to market, but to go to market we need to have clients. So what is the perspective from the European Union citizens? Are they ready to buy and to use this technology and the product that will come from them? Or what type of changes is needed to have the buy-in of all of us in terms of citizens? Pier Giuseppe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Virginia, for this question, which allows me to present some of the results that we've got at the Bioeconomy Transition Research Group at Unitelma Sapienza in Rome, which is actually related to what you were mentioning, so consumers' perspective into this major transition. Let's start with some inputs about some information about how schizophrenic the consumers' behavior are nowadays. Well, we all know that there is overconsumption, almost in every sector. We heard about the fast fashion industry, the food waste was mentioned today during the panel session, that 30% of the food that families buy goes in the garbage at the household level. So we know that there are some schizophrenic aspects. This figure here, the one on the right, shows these nowhere flights. You might have heard about that. These are flights that were departing from one airport and landing in the same airport during the COVID lockdown period, just to let consumers to experience flying during the lockdown. So this is really crazy. Anyway, so your question about are consumers ready to buy bio-based products, products coming from the biotech industry and so on. So we did some experiments, and I will show you some results that we got. We compared conventional products with the bio-based products, and we looked at 3 different types of products. A set of colored pens, conventional plastic, bio-based plastic. A set of storage bags for food, bio-based plastic, conventional plastic, and hand soap, conventional versus bio-based one. So what we got 2 insights from this experiment. First of all, there is the willingness to pay a green premium. So this is something that is well known in the literature. Consumers are keen on paying an extra price for bio-based products. But 2 additional insights, which are more relevant from my perspective, are the following. First of all, most of the green premium comes for a certain type of products. Specifically, we find that the food storage bags were the one where consumers were willing to pay more. And from these results, in conjunction with other results that we obtained from other experiments, we gathered the idea that probably consumers are willing to pay more for those products that they perceive less impacting on their health. Okay, so in this sense, the concern for the environment and the green premium is a second-order concern. So I am more concerned about my health, and then as a reflection of this, it has an impact on buying green. So this is the first outcome, innovative outcome that we obtain. The second one relates to the role of standards. So when we compared the willingness to pay for bio-based products which bear a green label, a reliable one, then consumers are willing to pay even an extra green premium for green labels, for those products that are certified as sustainable. So these are two outcomes. The similar results we obtain when we look at the greenium, which is the green premium in the investment sector for the green finance, something that you both mentioned as a key area for driving investments. So what we did an experiment here comparing green bonds versus brown bonds, and we obtained three key findings. The first one is that there is a greenium effect. So again, investors in this case are keen on paying an extra cost for investing in green bonds. There is a signal effect, which basically is telling us that the quality of the signal that investors receive is very, very relevant in orienting their choice in terms of investing green or not. So what is the quality of the signal? Basically, the quality of the signals relates to how reliable the signals that you get is. So people are advertising their bonds as green bonds. Are they really green bonds or not? So this is the issue about greenwashing. So when the signal is low and when investors realize that they keep receiving the wrong signal, specifically they keep receiving a signal that the bond that they're buying is green, but actually it turns out not to be green, then they revert to brown, and they revert permanently to brown. So this is something very, very risky for green bonds. So we need to provide the right signals to consumers. In order to provide the right signals to consumers, we need to make sound research. We need to develop tools for assessing sustainability, and this is not easy at all, because as we know, sustainability is not like measuring the length of a table, but it's measuring something that is complex, that is multidimensional, and that entails a lot of trade-offs. Just to give you some insight about the trade-off, we did a study published on Scientific Reports of Nature, where we compared the sustainability, environmental sustainability, we concentrated only on environmental sustainability of face masks, and we looked at washable face masks versus single-use face masks, and of course we obtained the result that we're expecting, that the reusable one is less impacting on the environment. However, when we did some sensitivity tests, so basically we changed some assumption. For example, we played with the assumption on the way in which the reusable mask is washed, and we substitute the assumption that is washed in the washing machine, and we introduced that people are washing them by hands, then we obtained a completely different result. So basically now, if people are washing their face mask by hands, then the rewashable one is more impacting on the environment. Why is it so? Because of water consumption and consumption of soap. So basically, this is telling us, first of all, that assessment is not easy, but there is also another take-home message from these results that I want to share with you, is that it's not just about making better products, cleaner products, it's also about the way in which we consume these products, okay? So we really have the consumption more sustainable consumption has to go always hands in hand with more sustainable production and the other way around. There is no way that we can solve the problem looking only from the consumption side or the production side. This is something that has to go always hands in hands. I will stop it here.
Thanks a lot also for this very interesting intervention. If again I can just summarize a few elements I really took my attention. One is that consumers are ready to pay more. They are looking for these new products and green products, but they want also to have the assurance of what they are buying. So we have to try to find a way to certify and label in a way that is transparent and scientifically proof. And that's, I think this is important because it's essential. If we don't have this buy-in, we can make the best products, but someone will need to buy them. So let's make the consumer willing to pay and asking for this type of product, but do it in a way that also look at all the elements, not only one part of it, and think about circularity in the broader sense and sustainability. So thanks a lot for our three speakers. They are here with us to continue discussing. So now we open the floor for all of you. We also open Slido. I would like, if it's possible, to have on screen and ask everyone here, but especially also those that are online, to start to pose your question. I know that some of our colleagues will look at them and help me in moderating this part of the discussion. But maybe just to give you a little bit of time to start to write your question, I take the opportunity of having Stefano, that is one of our youth ambassadors. If you want to stand up, can we give, do you mind if I pass the, oh no, thanks, okay. So, as this is a festival which really want to foster the youth and the feedback from you. Can you tell us what is your impression? Do you have any question for the panelists? Do you have any takeaway you want to share from your perspective?
Yeah, as a start, so thanks for this panel, for all the panelists. Of course, I'm an industrial biotechnologist working with microbes genetically modified, so for me, it was Wonderland. This thing. So thank you all for what you said, especially also for addressing synthetic biology, all these risky topics to address. And considering also being representative of all the group of the Bioeconomy Youth Ambassadors, we yesterday presented our Bioeconomy Youth Vision, where we would like to drive future bioeconomy policies with the perspective of youth. So there were a lot of topics related specifically, for example, to biomass use, a cascading principle, of course the one with biotech or synthetic biology, but also other topics related to economic models, education, and so on. So therefore also from the communication related, for example, to the impact of the products and so on. The thing is that I see, of course, for my experience, I understood everything was said. The problem is always to drive to these topics to the broader audience and to policymakers as well, because it could be they're not, they don't have the knowledge, because these are technical things. All the things that I mean sure are really, really technical. So I'm also a science communicator. So also sometimes I have interview in the radio. They ask me, can you explain CRISPR-Cas in 1 minute without using big words? I don't even know if people knows what a genome is. So it's complicated. So maybe my question for you, it's how make this thing simpler, but not too much simpler that is like too much at the ground level. So to make understand the people, the consumers and policymakers that these topics are important, going beyond what's their already knowledge about that, for example, for the topic of synthetic biology and GMOs and so on. So that's could be my question for you. As a general
Jerome, you
one.
take
Yeah,
this?
be very happy to. I think my answer will actually be probably this. What we do as scientists is we talk about technology, we talk about CRISPR, and we try to explain what that is. Actually, people don't really care. Yeah. They care about what can I do. The digital revolution. Do you understand the computer language behind this or the way this thing is working? No, we don't. I don't either. Yes. So So I think that's where we often make a mistake, and actually the regulator as well, if I may say so. We try to regulate technologies. Actually, you shouldn't regulate. You should regulate what you do with it. Yes. So the end result is what you should regulate. Thanks. So because it's really that's just a key mistake, and we should also the second thing about it is we should be damn proud. This is made in Europe. This is made and discovered in Europe, or this is young people putting their minds to it to change a thing. That's the second part. We should be proud. And then the third part is there's a nice quote. We should stimulate entrepreneurship. And what I mean with that, and for the youth, I think it's really key. People are often afraid about big competitors, right? There's big global competitors, or there's incumbents, etc. Well, actually, I make the reference, if you've ever slept in a room when there's one mosquito, right, nagging around, that mosquito is so small and you're like a giant compared to it, but you'll be awake, right? So that's what we need to instill in the youth of Europe. Go be the mosquito. Don't give up and go for it, because we need it. And we know things can fail, right? It's science. We know things can fail, that's okay. But let's talk about what we want to do with it, and not so much about, we can talk about how we do things amongst ourselves, but it's about trusting the process as well. We have a good process to evaluate risk versus benefit. So people will take care of that piece. Talk about what the potential is.
Excellent. I think we have quite a lot of nice takeaways also for our ending of this session. Do we have questions? So I stand up because it's easy for me to read. I see questions are coming in and also have been voted. Maybe let's start from the top. So how to translate all the biotech potential into opportunities and engage society? See, for instance, the plant biotech case where never took off. Who would like to take this question?
Actually, it's a work that we have been trying to do at Europa Bio with our biomanufacturing platform, because we saw that there was a huge gap of knowledge between biotechnologies, and the society. So people don't like and don't support, but they don't understand. And biotechnology, most of the people tend to either not understand or understand it partially. And we identified some of the reasons why biotechnology sometimes acts as a process, acts for a final product, acts to create intermediates to other products. So most of the times we are far away from the final consumer. So one of the strategies that we have been using to try to explain society the potential of biotechnology is to tell the story from the final consumer end product to the biotechnology. So rather than having an approach explaining the technology from the scratch, as Jerome said, doing the opposite, so taking the final product and telling the story product back. And it's been working. We had a successful case, for instance, with detergents, because most of the people didn't know they had, for instance, enzymes or other microbes that, for instance, allow you to wash more effectively using less energy, less water as well. So we have trying to use this strategy, and so far it's been working, and you want to do it, it's to scale up to more products, to more case studies, to really deliver the message.
Anything you want to add on this, please?
Yes, I want to add something related both to these questions and the previous one. So when it comes to information and the way in which we deliver this information, there is an issue that is called asymmetric information in economics, which is characterizing almost every kind of market, but new emerging markets even more. So basically there are two parts that have different access to different type of information. On the one hand, we have producers that have access to way more information, and then on the other hand, we have consumers. So we have to, in a way, find a way to minimize this asymmetric information. Okay, so to close the gap in terms of this asymmetric information. How do we do that? And this is where communication, the issue of communicating in the right way complex things to consumers gets into the picture. So we need independent assessment on sustainability, on the impact on human health, and so on. And we need to deliver these complex assessments in a clear and simple way to consumers. So we have to build trust with consumers. In order to do this, we have to make sure that we are doing things in the best possible way, in the most sound and reliable way. Of course, we can make mistakes because we are measuring some things that are very complicated, but we have to make sure that there is a trust between the bodies that are providing this information and consumers. So this is something very, very important that we have to bear in mind, closing the gap. Then it comes when the other part of the question was about making this information available to policymakers, to those that are going to make the regulation. Well, I think that at European level, we are really lucky because I think that generally speaking, the level of policymakers that we have at EU level, less at single country level, is very high. And I think that in this sense, the kind of regulation that EU is making is really helping all the countries that are within the EU to make a big step forwards towards this direction.
But
Maybe I pick in on that because it's also the question that
exactly.
raises to the top. I think what needs to happen to address also the first question, perhaps. I think we need to face the reality, and I'm a big believer that perhaps it's time for biotech in particular to create a coalition of willing member states and create a single regulatory approval process, not a two-step process. Because a lot of the European regulation works indeed very well. There's a lot of expertise there, but there's still a two-step process. So in other words, if you want to get something approved, you need to then go to each individual member state. I find it, and that leads to timelines which go way beyond what you have in other countries. So our science is being funded outside and is getting first access to markets outside of Europe, even though we originate. So I think one key thing there, both on the terms in terms of financing innovation as well as regulatory creating the market, is let's work with, and I realize the diversity of different countries is very difficult, etc. But biotech is such a specific theme that does not know any boundaries, right? It really doesn't. So let's create a coalition of the willing and get away from this two-step process to a one-step process. Trust the process, that it's done very thoroughly and and then you get, as a company, as a startup, you immediately get access to a much bigger market, which will drive investment in it, which will drive, the evolution of. So I really think this idea is something, at least, worth thinking about in terms of policy. So.
In fact, I wanted to ask Francisco, because you mentioned, in fact, the creation of the real EU single market for bioeconomy, I would say broader sense, not just biotechnology. You want to add anything on this?
Yes, I can add something also from some takeaways of yesterday, and I see the question on novel foods. We had a few novel foods companies yesterday, startups with us, sharing their challenges at the moment at the EU. First, I want to tell you that alternative proteins is something that we created in Europe. We came up with the idea, we created the technology. We have startups now emerging at a very higher pace. What is happening now is that they have their product, they are ready to go to the market, but guess where are they going to the market? To the US. They are going to Singapore. So what is happening is that Jerome talked about these two steps. So we have sometimes EU regulation pushing for innovation and for alternative proteins and for solutions. And sometimes we have national legislation going in the other way. So first, it leads to a long process, whereas in the US, novel foods go to the market in less than 1 year. In Europe, it takes at least 2 years. And now we are seeing some countries in Europe pushing back novel foods. So the EU market, the EU single market cannot work for one thing and not work for the others. It cannot be optional for when it's important for some countries, and in the others they don't want to. So we really need to improve, coordinate, harmonize the single market, because only this way we'll be able to reach the market at the same time and really have this power and leverage of all the Europeans to bring up these solutions and to test them in Europe and to grow them in Europe. We don't want them to go first to the US, to scale in the US. we want them to stay, and regulations need to help on this process, both at EU and national level.
Can create a lot of ideas, but in the end, this innovation needs to be financed. So it was already said, we need to harness the power of the private investors to make these products a reality, because like it or not, these are capital intensive things, and the public sector alone cannot do this. So we have at least a 3 to 5 times gap versus the US when it comes to venture capital. We have a 7 times gap between publicly quoted companies and the performance of stock markets in the US versus Europe. Whereas actually the capital is also here, right? It's just not being invested in high-tech, biotech type companies. And that has many reasons, goes beyond what we can say here or have the time to discuss here. But so we need to finance innovation, and then we need to create the single market. And I think really pushing that agenda, you can rely on the youth of Europe to stand up and come up with ideas that want to achieve their shot on goal to really become the next Impossible Burger or whatever, right? I mean, these ideas are here, the entrepreneurship can be here, but we need to create an environment in terms of capital and regulatory access to make their dream come true.
You added, in fact, to the question on how we can stimulate the biomanufacturing, because what we are discussing is this, to ensure that our society and our economy is defossilized and is sustainable. Anything more from you, Giuseppe?
Yeah, no, I want to get back on the point that Jerome was making about driving investments in the sector. This is really a key point, and I think that the policymaker has a key role in making this happen, at least for 2 reasons. On one hand, they can make public investments in order to crowd in private investments. So this is something that has happened in a lot of sectors. If we look at the history of industrialization, this is something that has happened in a lot of sectors, in a lot of instances. Why is it so? Because basically the policymaker might have a vision and put some public money because they see potential in that specific sector, in this case the biotech, and then this is making the effect of crowding in private investments, okay? So this is the first thing the policymaker can do. And the other thing that they can do, and this is something where there is a big effort from the European Union, if you think about the taxonomy, is to make clear, to clearly identify what is green investment from what is not green investment, okay? And I go back to the whole thing of standards and making assessments and providing this information to investors, okay? Even small investors, retail investors need this kind of information, okay? And this is also an area where the policymaker can play a key role. Another issue that was mentioned today during the panel that I think is the big elephant in the room is the externalities, which are not taken into consideration. So if we want to make a level playing field, we just have to acknowledge that conventional products are just not taking into the price that we pay for conventional products are just not taking into consideration social externalities. How do we produce these kind of things? Where do we produce these kind of products? And under which labor condition we produce these kind of products? And environmental externalities, okay? So if we embed these externalities in the price, then of course we have a level playing field already there.
And also, if I look again, I'm monitoring the question. I think what came also from this discussion is that we have to probably change the way we tell the story and speak more about the products and the advantage and the correctness of the way the products are developed than the way the product is developed. This will be more easy to understand. So there is anything more because there is a question on this specifically. Do we need to talk more about solution and less about technology? Do we all agree that this could be one of the takeaway also on the way we communicate what is bioeconomy and what is the added value? And then on the possibility again, how do we stimulate the scaling up? Many things have been said in terms of regulation, in terms of creating the single market, in terms of mobilizing capital. Anything more that you want to add?
Well, maybe just to come back to also how can we stimulate biomanufacturing and also coming back to where public investments make sense. Where I think they really make sense is in creating pilot plants, because in biomanufacturing and especially coming from waste streams and synthetic biology, there's a huge hurdle between showing something at small scale, medium scale, and large scale. And I think that's where actually there's a real need for pilot infrastructure that can be used by small and medium companies, or by academic innovators, or entrepreneurs, etc. Even larger companies, if they want to scale, to test solutions as they have them in mind, to see and develop them so that they can withstand. And actually, that's a way to attract private investment. So I think that's a one nice area. And you see also, in fact, that both China, all the countries you mentioned, US, etc., are taking this card in a major way. So that's perhaps a concrete example of where these things can come together.
Then there were questions on timings, both in terms of approvals, in terms of accessing of funding.
Yes.
There, what can we do? There is any suggestion that we can pass to the Commission would be welcome also.
Yeah, I would like just to address the question that is on top, because I think it's a very important one. We know that in biomanufacturing, when we talk about also the feedstock, we are always competing with the petrochemicals, right? The fossil fuels that are mainstream, that they are established, they have the supply chains. And to do a change at European level in this field, we have a critical change. So we need to change the paradigm, and we want to create the right conditions for this to happen. And this is, in a very general way, we need to create predictable, stable frameworks, being that for financial investments, being that for regulations. We need stability. People need to know that the rules that are decided today, they will be there in 10 years. Because if we want to do this change, we need big investment and long-term investment. And if we don't have it, it will be impossible to do it. And now I want just to bring an example from a completely different sector that needed to go away from fossil fuels to renewable. So in the energy sector, when you really needed to go away from the fossils and provide alternatives, there was a 10-year stability on funding, for instance, for aeolics in Denmark, in Europe. And only these times of periods that we are talking about long-term initiatives that bring confidence to the market are able to change the game towards biotech, biomanufacturing, and bioeconomy.
Thanks a lot. I would like to ask one question to Philippe. I know you are in the room. If you don't mind to step in, because you are the managing director of Infinite Roots. So you can tell us about your personal experience. What are the difficulties or the challenges you are facing in the scaling up?
Yeah, sure. I think so. All the topics that have been mentioned are also topics that are affecting us, but they're all very connected. So especially the regulatory approval topic is a very relevant one. So if it takes you 2 or 3 years to get regulatory approval, then what investors are looking for are, for instance, product market fit, meaning you need to sell your products in the market to get more investments. And you need these investments to scale up your capacity in the first place. So it's all connected. And if, for instance, we would be able to get regulatory approval timelines down to less than a year, you also solve the problem of getting more investments for the private sector. And by getting more investments from the private sector, you solve your upscaling challenge. So that's, for me, where it all starts. We really need to solve this regulatory approval timelines, because otherwise we will fund a lot of stuff publicly here, but the value capture of that will happen in other countries. And I think that's something that we should try to avoid, because I know from the startup ecosystem there are a lot of companies that would love to stay here and they would love to bring their products here to market, but we need to really solve the regulatory challenge. That's the first thing for me.
Yeah, maybe to pitch in on that, that's where I think, to be honest, knowing the complexity of Europe, this idea of let's start with a few member states who are really aligned, because you mentioned that some of the regulation actually goes the opposite directions. I mean, let's also, with 27 countries, that's a hard thing to... So I'm actually really hoping that for biotech, as it is a young emergent sector with no boundaries, let's just get started. And if you would already be able to convince your investors, listen, we have a market approval for, I don't know, 5 countries in Europe. you'd have a different discussion with your investors.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I look at the time. I know we have to close sharply. I still leave the possibility if you have any last question, please. If you can introduce yourself and take the microphone so everyone can hear you, please.
Thank you. I'm Germán Vigi from GeneSprout. I want to ask one question to definitions that were mentioned, taxonomy and foreseeing 10 years or 20 years. And I have the impression that taxonomy lately is very improvised. Like one day this is green, 2 years later it's not green anymore. And companies are struggling all the time to adapt to that taxonomy to then being changed again. So my question is, how can we do this like a more longer term vision regarding taxonomy and not like an improvised issue?
There are two issues here to be addressed in order to answer your question. One is related to the complexity of the assessment. So it can be the case that we make adjustment over time in what we consider sustainable and what we don't. Okay, as knowledge improves, then it can be the case. But this is not really the major problem. The problem, and I've been looking at this also from a policy side, because I've been acting as an advisor of the former Italian Minister of the Environment, and I was sitting at the tables where the taxonomy was discussed at a policy level. The problem is that sometimes you have the policy level that is mixing with research, and this is really introducing a lot of distortion. Today, during the panel, it was mentioned that we cannot make mistakes anymore. We cannot afford to make mistakes anymore, and we have to rely more and more on research and the work that, for example, the JRC is doing. So this is probably something. This is probably a very strong message. I think that probably policy should enter less into this kind of discussion and leave more the room and the floor to researchers that have been investing in terms of knowledge in order to get some results. Less ideology, more research-based, evidence-based regulation.
Yeah, maybe one question, and I'm not a regulatory expert, but one question, or let alone taxonomy, but one question I always face is that we try to be very scientific, accurate about new things, right? And then it's green, light green, dark green. But actually, probably if you tell a consumer what you're using now, actually we're not so much analytical about the impact of the things we use every day already. So we focus on, is it now, this new thing, is it going to be light green or dark green? But the thing we're using today, I mean, it's, we sort of assume that, okay, but actually it has big impact, right? A negative impact. So that's perhaps a thought as well to say, okay, actually, are we overemphasizing the actual shade of green on this side, whereas actually we're not saying how dark the other side is, right? I mean...
And there are still questions coming in. I think we have a couple of minutes more. I would like to take some others of those that are put on the screen. So about NGT, that's a bit more complicated one. Who would like to take? So it's difficult to convince. How do we deal with this?
We're very happy, obviously, as a driver of the plant biotechnology in our region. And actually, I saw one of the comments also saying, okay, it's never taken off. I would tend to disagree. It's never taken off in Europe, that's for sure. So that's one of the exact examples where we need to talk about what we do with the technology rather than the technology itself. We actually already have medicines which we apply in human based on CRISPR, and we're still afraid of eating DNA. I mean, we eat DNA, ladies and gentlemen, every day, right? I mean, we've been eating DNA since the start of humanity. So so this is exactly the example, and actually then of course it becomes politics as well. It's again even the step that's being taken now is a great step forward, but we need to realize that actually modern breeding techniques is also relying on mutagenesis, right? And so it doesn't make sense to sort of hold a false idea towards the general public when you actually know that you will need. I mean, the CRISPR is the biggest biotech invention in the last 20 years or more. So how are we going to address the Green Deal and the bioeconomy challenges if we throw away in Europe the biggest tool we have in our toolbox? I think this just does not make any sense. But I do realize people are concerned, so it's not, I don't want to belittle the concern, but we need to talk about what we can do. If we want drought-tolerant crops, because actually Europe is facing drought tolerance, we need to develop these. These are complex things. It's not just a single trick. We will need this technology.
Francisco, I see you want to add anything. Take also the question, because we are almost over the closure, so feel free also to add any addition you would like to share.
No, the NGT topic is also very dear to Europa Bio. NGTs are a technology that can deliver in the 3 pillars of sustainability. So if we are talking about plants and we are talking about the lack of water, we can create plants that need less inputs in terms of water, that can produce more and contribute for food supply, and at the same time they can keep on creating economic benefits because they will produce more. So it's a type of technology that is very complete. It was, people may forget, it was a Nobel Prize in 2020, and recently it was also supported by more than 20 Nobel Prizes that support this technology. So it's a science-based, knowledge-based technology, and what is happening sometimes is that, of course, it has an history, but we have to take decisions based on science and not on political interests of the moment. And on this, I'll also to add that Europa Bio is looking forward to have the NGTs, that now the proposal is only for plants, but to see NGTs in microorganisms, because they can also bring a lot of advantages to the industry. And again, they are science-based, and we cannot look to be perfect. We need to be good, we need to improve, and we need to move forward, and the NGTs are certainly a technology to move forward.
I see another question at the back. It will be the last one, because then we need to go to the plenary. Please.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Max Kreumann, and I work for the German government for the Ministry of Economic Affairs. I would fully agree that the public acceptance is one of the big challenges, and it was also named in a draft of the European Commission in a risk assessment. So what is risk for biotechnologies is public acceptance. And you can see it everywhere in a way that, of course, lack of public acceptance is also relevant for policymakers or for decision makers. So they won't make decisions that are against the public acceptance. To maybe improve this, or at least a question on this, is if it would be possible to make, I don't know, a very short paper, 2 pages maximum, where you can just write down the current impact of biotechnologies for reducing CO2 carbon footprint and the positive impact on GDP, and then also to have an assessment, maybe 2 or 3 different scenarios where you say, without biotechnologies, we're going to end up here in terms of carbon footprint, in terms of fossil use, and in terms of GDP. So to have a very, very easy message or easy to digest message for policymakers and for the public, because then it might be easier to bring the message through. Do you think that this is possible?
Shall I? Yeah, I think it's something that can be done. It's a policy brief, basically, what you are asking for, which of course has to be based on sound research. but deliver a message in a clear way and make some scenario analysis. I think, yes, we can, this is something that can easily be done. Probably there are studies that can be used. Virginia, can I just
Yes.
add something? Because there was a question that was really interesting to me, and I think it was, is the first one now. It's encouraging to see that consumers are willing to pay more for green products. How will we make these products accessible to poor regions and groups? I think this is really touching a key point here. We are not going to solve the problem only as a European Union or as a US or as China. This is something that has to be solved at a global scale. The sustainability transition is something that has to occur at global scale. Nobody's going to win if we're not all together. Of course, the issue of global north and global south is really, really relevant. Just to give you an example of concrete things that can be done if we are courageous enough, if we are bold enough, think about the new regulation, the carbon border adjustment mechanism. This is very relevant because, of course, is creating, is kind of stopping this environmental dumping that oftentimes is done against product produced in Europe. But on the other hand, will have serious effect on global South countries. Africa is supposed to reduce their export by 7% when the CBAM will be enforced fully in 2026. This is going to have a strong impact on their economies. What can we do? Do we have to give up this carbon border adjustment mechanism? No. But if we are courageous enough to bring to use the money that we get, that we revenue from this border tax, in order to stimulate and to invest in those countries that will suffer, that will be negatively affected by this border tax, to stimulate investments in their technologies, in their green technologies, then we have a win-win situation, okay? We have to be bold, and we have to be bold because we have to understand that we're not going to win this as EU, but you have to win this at a global level.
And I think with this we will close because I want you all in the plenary. We have discussed intensively what are the potentiality. For me, few takeaways for all of us. We have the skills and the capacity at European level. We have to be faster and be able to mobilize the capitals on one side, but at the same time the policy makers to ensure that the framework is stable, but is also reacting quickly, especially to technologies and products that go faster than as we are used to do, let's say. And at the same time, we have to pay attention that who are the client of this product, the consumers of this product, understand what they are buying, they are well informed, and there is a way to track and monitor and label what we are doing in a transparent way. Let's say that I close with these few words. I really thank everyone, but especially the three panelists that stay with me today. And please, let's go all to the plenary to hear the conclusion of these 2 days of event. We did it. Thanks a lot. It was really interesting. I learned a lot about your